So now we're just going to shift to, because a lot of people's questions are, okay, so where are these scholarship opportunities? So one just big general question is, where do people find scholarships? Do they actually even exist? Do people actually even get these? Just kind of touch on that a little bit, and then we'll dig into some more of the specifics.
For sure. The answer is yes, they do actually get them. And these aren't full rides. They're $500 to maybe $3,000. And what happens many times is people are, oh, 500, I'm not doing that. Well, think about it this way. If you're a high school senior, you should be able to write a 500-word essay in less than an hour, right? That if you can use that one essay to be applied to 10 different scholarships, even if it's just one and you get $500, guess what? You just got $500 for an hour's work.
Yeah.
You know, that's work that I'm willing to do. That if when I get into the real world, I can make $500 an hour, life is going to be good. So those are out there. You know, what I would caution people of is if a scholarship says it doesn't require an essay and it doesn't require grades or anything like that, I would be skeptical of those, because a lot of times it's almost just like a lottery at that point, and they're trying to gather they're trying to get your email address and that sort of thing.
I heard of, there was someone was sharing, I think it was a client who was sharing that, their friend or one of their kids actually got a scholarship from, it was a company that was offering a scholarship, and basically it was to write an essay, but they got 4 years of at least tuition, maybe full ride covered, and then so all of that is covered, and then they also have an internship at the end of it that's set up. Employers
are great resources. I know, like the Lake County Retired Teachers Association has one for people getting into education. There's I think my dad's union had one when I was growing up. You know, you see them a lot from union locals, you know, like you said, from companies. The state of Illinois actually has some really good ones for students interested in special education. It's called the Illinois Special Education Teacher Tuition Waiver. And you have to attend a school in Illinois. And then obviously be studying special education, but that's tuition paid, you know, fees and room and board. And then with that, there's also some, you know, you have to teach in Illinois for 4 or 5 years after that.
Yeah. I even think, this is not college related, but even just like veterans, you know, military, even for whether it's college, but even just like private education up through 12th grade, those sometimes you can even actually get, fully covered by some of those organizations. So it's really just being aware of, you know, what are your interests, hobbies, what are jobs that people, you know, have, what your parents, grandparents, things that they were a part of, your heritage, like so many things. There's also different, categories of scholarships. So let's touch on some of these. So sports is a big one. Do you see many kids that are getting sports scholarships to go to school?
I think that it's one of those things that, you know, people are kind of waiting, again, the idea of elephant hunting, right? They're waiting for that big one. The statistic is, I think that 0.8% of all high school athletes will receive a fully funded scholarship, right? So less than 1%.
Wow.
1.2% of high school athletes will receive some sort of money to play a sport at the collegiate level. That can be a $500 book scholarship to go run track somewhere, right? Where if you're going to a school that's $60,000, that $500 in books doesn't do a ton. But I also think that there is a pretty significant obsession with this idea of Division I or bust. Division I is your Power Fives, your Big Tens, you know, things like that, where a lot of people, you know, there's also Division II, which a lot of people, you know, I always say, okay, you think you're interested in Division II athletics, name me 10 Division II schools. And that's always a fun drill. Right. And that's part of the learning. The nice thing about Division II is you can receive athletic and academic money. At Division III schools, that's your Augustanas, Illinois Wesleyans, Elmhurst, North Park, places like that. Technically, you cannot receive any incentives based on your athletic ability. So any money you receive from those institutions has to be either merit or need. There are two other divisions that I think get forgotten about, and that's NAIA. So like Roosevelt University in the city, St. Xavier on the south side of Chicago, St. Ambrose in Davenport, Iowa. Those are all NAIA schools that you can then again be offered both merit-based and athletic scholarships. And there's two divisions of that. And then there's the National Junior College, which is College of Lake County, Harper, that sort of thing. They can offer some money as well.
Okay. So that's helpful, I think, even just for people, because there's so many parents and there's so many clubs that kids are doing sports now, and you're paying for those lessons, you're paying for all of those competitions now, and is it worth it? So I think that's helpful just to understand that, is there money there?
There's a lot of research done on that too. And it's the idea of like, and we're guilty of this, that the amount of money that you spend on club sports, had we just put that into our, 529, that we wouldn't have to worry about that. But again, there's, not everybody does it.
Okay. So then let's shift, like academics is kind of another big area that people typically think, okay, you can get money for, just like you said, merit-based. Is that from GPA in high school? Is that from test scores, and which ones?
There are some schools that are going test optional, or have gone, if you apply to a Marquette, a Xavier, a St. Louis University, you can qualify for very good scholarships with a test optional application. With that, though, especially again at some of your larger or your state flagship and state land grant institutions out of state, to qualify for those top scholarships, you're still going to need a top level test score.
On the GPA, is there like, this is the minimum you would need to qualify? Same with the scores of tests. Is there like, you need to be above this to even think you're going to get something?
Yeah. So it depends on the institution, right?
Yeah.
Where, again, we've referenced your alma mater a couple of times, Kansas State University. They do a very nice job of it. It doesn't matter if it's weighted or unweighted. If you have a 3.8 or better, you qualify for in-state tuition.
Okay.
And that's very nice. University of Arkansas does the same thing, where some schools, they want unweighted, or they recalculate, or whatever it might be. Right. Okay. The more selective, the less it's about GPA, and it's more about the courses that you have taken and the grades that you get in those courses.
Okay.
So it's like, hey, you need to take the hardest classes your school offers and get the best grade available, because again, a topic for a whole other podcast and probably a graduate level education course is the idea of grade inflation and that sort of thing. And so, colleges in some cases are trying to guard from that. And other cases, they're kind of embracing it and being like, hey, we think you can do fine on our campus, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Is there an ACT or SAT score that like it needs to be above typically?
It depends on the school. Okay. I always kind of say, kind of as a rule of thumb, if you have once your ACT starts with a 3, you're kind of opening some doors, and I got to look at my trusty calculator, but I think it's a 1300 or better, is whatever the ACT equivalent.
Some others that you mentioned just as we were talking, like geography or special talents, these are ways you can get scholarships. Do you want to kind of discuss those a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's looking for an oboe player from North Dakota, right? Especially the more selective, the more national the institution, they not only want to be representative internationally, but nationally. And for whatever reason, it's really hard to get students from like the Dakotas or Alaska or something like that. Again, orchestras have enough trombones, saxophones, and trumpets. And it's just, again, you never know what it is that some place will need. But the thing that you also have to realize is, hey, you applied to this super selective school, or somebody a year above you did, and they played the oboe, and you do too, so you think you have an in. Guess what? They don't need you for the next 4 years, because they got that oboe spot locked up for the next 4 years. So, it can also be, we hear about the athletes most of the time, but there's still opportunities for performers and, again, musicians and artists and that sort of thing. It's just, that's what's hard. That's even what I can't really inventory perfectly is what is every institution's need from year to year to year. So there's a luck calculus to some of that as well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think you said this really well before. You're kind of saying like kids want the money from these different scholarships, these different places, but they don't want to do the work to get the money. And that's a really big deal when you're talking about writing the essays, filling out. And those are the things you have to do to be able to be considered for these.
Yeah. And that's the way it is for a lot of things. And when it comes to these scholarships, it's just understanding that to get the money, you got to do the work, and the work can be tedious.